Hi guys, thanks for joining me. Today, we're going to knit a hat in the round. In the previous videos, you learned how to knit and purl, how to increase and decrease your stitches, and how to knit a gauge swatch or a square. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to go over the basic steps on how to knit a hat in the round using circular knitting needles. Now, I don't want you to get scared or think that this is just not going to be something that you're going to be able to do. I'm going to give you the very easiest way that you can start knitting in the round by knitting flat first. So let's just get to it so that I can show you what we're going to do. Okay, in this episode, we're going to be using a pair of scissors, some measuring tape, tapestry needle, and a stitch marker to mark the beginning of your round. We're also going to be using Lion Brand Hometown yarn in the color Madison Mustard. It's a really pretty mustard color. We're going to be making a hat. On the label itself, I know it's a little blurred out, but right here it says that to make one hat, you need 1 ball of yarn. I already know that to make a hat, I need out of this super bulky number 6 yarn, I need to make it 44 stitches all around on size US 13 knitting needles. The knitting needles I'll be using today are my favorite Knit Picks wooden knitting needles. To do a hat, you want to have a 16-inch cord or bigger. Okay, let's get started. The first thing I want to do is count out my stitches, and I do that by going around the knitting needle in the yarn that I'm using. We want 44 stitches, so we're going to go around 44 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You want this to stay nice and loose. You don't want there to be any tension at all whatsoever. And then just push them back as you count them out. We're going to do this 44 times in total. 40, 41, 42, 43, 44. And then I want to leave an extra long tail, longer than usual. So this is about 6 inches. I want to give it a good 8 to 10 inches in length, just in case I didn't count my stitches out enough. So if worse comes to worse, then I have an extra long tail, okay? So now we're going to start our slip knot. Making sure not to choke our needle, and we're going to start our long tail cast on. We're going to do this a total of 44 times. If you are using different size yarn, you can still cast on a total of 44 stitches, but you'll have a much different size hat. What I'll do is I'll put the different cast-ons that you could probably use. I'm going to do it based on acrylic yarn, and I'll leave those cast-on numbers in the description box below, okay? That way you don't have to worry about running out and getting exactly the same yarn that I'm using. And if you don't know, or if you're not sure, you can simply do your cast on or measure out your swatch like in one of the previous videos. Measure it out and measure the circumference of your head and do as many stitches to compensate for that. You know what I'm saying? Like if you have a 4-inch swatch and it's 20 inches and you've got a 12-inch head, multiply accordingly. And then you'll have the size of the hat that you want to knit up. Okay, we're going to do this, like I said, 44 times. Okay, so counting this in pairs, one other thing that you could do is you could put a stitch marker every 10 to 20 stitches, and that's so that you can always keep track of how many stitches you have on your needle at any given time. I don't need to do this because I've done this 1,000 times. And also I don't have the right size stitch markers for this particular yarn right now, but you can go out and you can buy your stitch markers and add them every 10 or 20 stitches. So let's count these out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is the point where I would put a stitch marker so that I know I have 10 pairs or 20 stitches. Got it. So 20, and then, okay, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So that's a total of 40 stitches that I have, or 20 pairs, and 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I have the exact right number of stitches on my needles. If you're familiar with the magic loop method, you're not going to knit flat. You can just join right now. But since we're beginners, we're going to do a rib stitch and knit this flat so that we can join it in the round later much more easily than we would if we had to mess with this whole cord right now. So starting back at the beginning, here we are. We know we're at the beginning because this is our tail. We're going to knit 1, and yarn forward, insert to purl, yarn over, knit back, and push it off the needles. And pull that little tail to make these 2 stitches up here nice and snug. Remember to leave space so that you can easily move your stitches around. And we're going to repeat the knit and the purl all around the first row. So knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, and repeat all the way to the end of the row. And here we are at the end where we're going to finish off our row with a purl stitch. It is important that we start our row with a knit stitch and end our row with a purl stitch. So it doesn't really matter how many stitches you have, just that you begin on a knit, end on a purl. Now we're going to not let go of our working yarn, and we're going to turn our work clockwise to a number 3 position, right? And we're not gonna, it doesn't really matter. You don't want to twist your stitches around in the needle, that's for sure. So if you have to lay it down to put your stitches back, you know, lay them nice and flat, you know they're going in the correct direction, okay? Because it all looks the same, this row. This row does not look the same as the other side. You see, if your row is twisted or anything, you'll know because it does not look the same, okay? So here you go. Now we're going to knit the knits and purl the purls, okay? See how that's a knit stitch? We're gonna knit that. And that's a purl stitch. Knit, purl, knit, purl. All right, we're gonna do that all the way to the end. See how our little rows are starting to form of your little columns? That's what we wanna look for. Everything needs to be a little column. Okay, we've reached the end of row number 2. Always making sure that your row is nice and flat. And you're going to turn your work around And this is row number 3. And we're going to knit the knits, purl the purls, all the way down. So we're going to repeat this process until our cuff, our ribbed cuff, is about 1.5 inches. Okay, so I'm back at the beginning of my round. I know that it's the beginning of my round because this is my tail. My knit is nice and flat. I have done 1, 2, 3, 4, a total of 5 rounds. Okay, so we did about 2 inches. That's usually how I like my hats to be. What I want to do is I want to position my work this way. Okay, so basically like that. This is my tail. Okay, that's the needle I was working on. This is the other end, and I want a nice little curve here, remembering that all your stitches have to lie nice and flat all around, and it has to be exactly the same all around. You know it's the same because this is the knit side, right? And this was the purl side. It's all purled on that side, okay? And so what I want you to do now, don't worry about where any of the needles are. In fact, you can pull this one out, okay? Pull them out, it's fine. You know that's the beginning because that's your tail. I want you to put these two together like this. Make them kiss on the inside, okay? On the inside. And then you're gonna lie that flat. You're not gonna let that go. And then you're going to take any section back here, any section at all, it doesn't matter, and you're gonna pull your needles in. This is just so that you can position your needles to knit them in the round, okay? Not letting anything go, holding everything down. It's not dire, but it's best that you just hang on to everything. Because it's in the back, this is now needle number 2. And because this is in the front, this is now needle number 1. You're going to push needle number 1 all the way in. Take your working yarn over needle number 2, between needle number 1 and needle number 2, okay? Your working yarn is always going to be between needle number 1 and needle number 2. And now you're going to take needle number 2, pull it out. What happens back there doesn't matter. It can come out all the way. It could stay like that. It doesn't matter. It could go in all the way, or it could stay in a loop. It doesn't matter. Now, we're going to take the yarn that is between needle number 1 and needle number 2, right here, and we're going to knit the first stitch. And pull it a little bit. Okay, we're going to knit the first stitch, and you're hanging on to everything, and you're going to attach a stitch marker. So that's going to mark the beginning of your round. And this is the first row. You're just going to knit every stitch. Knit, knit, and you can give the second or the third a nice little tug, because that'll tighten up your stitches between here. there shouldn't be a gap between the back of the work and the front of the work, okay? Making sure still that everything is nice and flat and not twisted at all. Everything is completely flat and not twisted. And just knit round number 1 all the way around. I'm going to take you through so that you can see how weird the cable is going to get and how to deal with that, okay? Because I know that knitting with a cable the first time is scary, it's weird, it's awkward, it's like, oh my God. But really all you have to do is just continue to move your stitches around and don't let the cable intimidate you. It helps to have a nice cable that doesn't roll up on you constantly, but it doesn't really matter. See what just happened? How everything tried to twist up on me? Don't let that happen to you. Just pull the cord from any old side and then just continue working in the round, making sure that your pieces are flat against each other and that this is the rib that you see down at the bottom, the ridge. You see all the pretty knits on that side. I know this is getting a little bit scary because it's starting to pull apart. That's okay, we're going to deal with that in a moment. Get that tail out of the way. Always know where your tail is at. Make sure that your knitting is still flat up against each other. It's going to be weird because it's not together, but it's together where you joined it. See this? This is the last stitch there. That's where you joined it. And now you're back at the beginning. You're going to let that go or not. It really depends on how comfortable you are. You just see that gap there? We're going to take care of that in a second. Now, this turned into needle number 2 and this into needle number 1. So you're going to pull to reposition all your needles, push everything through. So this is still your first row. So let's finish that up by knitting that nice together, nice and tight. Move that marker over. That's called slip marker. And knit the next row and pull taut. Okay. The more you do this, the more your join will tighten up. We're going to do this one more time so I can show you how to deal with what happened there. I don't really know what happened there, but it looks really ugly. So I'm going to put it up and I'm going to knit it away. I mean, that happens sometimes. The stitches will split and you can just knit it into the work and it won't stick out. Usually whatever you do, you can fix, you can, you know, it doesn't matter. You can knit it away. Now, I could do another thing here. Now that I've reached the end of this row, I could turn my work around again. I don't want to throw too much at you guys and have it be super confusing, but this is just an example of something that I could do. We're at the back of the work. Everything is nice and flat. This feels like it's needle number 2 versus needle number 1. You really could just pull on the needle in the back all the way to reposition your stitches, and you're still working the same needles. Did you see that? We'll do it again. It doesn't really matter where the cord sticks out, is my point. See, we can do this, pull it out, pull it taut. All our work is still in the same position, the same direction. Everything is still put together. And we could just keep on going that way. And we could just keep on doing that until we're done knitting this. Whatever is the most comfortable for you, you guys. There's a million and one different ways to do the exact same thing, especially with knitting. Especially with knitting. There are so many different slip knots, so many different ways to knit into a stitch. You can knit into the front of the stitch, the back of the stitch. You can knit into the front, right, like that, and into the back. I mean, there's so many things that you can do. I don't want to like throw too much at you guys in the beginning, but there's a lot to learn. Here we are again at the end of our work. Notice that this is sticking out over here. Doesn't really matter where it's sticking out. We're at the front. We know we're at the front because this is where our end is at, and also where our our stitch marker is at. So we're going to slip the stitch marker. It didn't want to slip. It felt like going back over. Okay. And then we're going to knit and pull tight. You see how I pulled that? I pulled it from here. So pull that tight, not too tight, but tight, and keep on going. So we're going to keep on. See how, I want to show you. See how nicely this is put together here? That's it. It's put together. So if we want to do this now, we can weave this end in. So we don't really have to think about it anymore. In fact, you know what? You can still get it through this tapestry needle. I recommend getting a tapestry needle with a bigger hole in it if you're going to use super bulky yarn. So this ends here and this begins here. So we're just going to keep it simple, and we're going to, where can we go in? We're going to go in through here. There's this little bar right between these stitches. I'm going to put it through there, and that's it. And then we're going to go in here and through this next little stitch. You can go in through the leg and through the other leg and just stitch those up together all the way up. See that? It doesn't matter where you're going in or out. This is your first hat. I really don't want you guys to concentrate on perfection. I don't want you to concentrate on it being perfectly gorgeous, beautiful. I want you to enjoy the process of all your screw ups, okay? Because really, that's what it's all about. It's honestly, you are going to make mistakes throughout your entire knitting career. I do. I make them all the time. But the last thing that I want is for you to spend all the beginning stages worrying and stressing about it not looking like mine or not looking like hers or whatever. Like those are things that are not important. So yeah, I don't have like the most beautiful looking join here, but I did it and it's there and it doesn't really matter. It probably looks disastrous on the other side because I'm not really paying that much attention, but it makes no difference. I don't personally care. If you do, then you're in the wrong place. You're learning from the wrong knitter. Okay, you see this gap here? I don't like it. So I'm going to bring these guys together here. There's so much that you can fix with just weaving in your ends. I didn't like the way this one looked, so I'm going to just split these and weave them in through the back. There. Now, weaving in as you go, highly recommended. Highly recommended. That's going to be a lot less work for you at the end of the day. So this is gone. This is gone. Although I probably shouldn't have snipped that yet. Don't snip that until you're done with all your stuff, okay? Because you could drop this and then you're not going to know where it was, where the beginning is. It is not the end of the world. If you drop your stitch marker, you're going to measure your work. So at this point, you're going to measure your work until it's, and then we're going to start the decreases on the crown. Okay, at this point, we've got 8 stitches from the cast on edge, which is what I wanted here. And it doesn't matter if it's perfect. It doesn't have to line up perfectly. I could do one more row. It doesn't make a difference. So 8 inches. And then the remaining stitches that we're going to be knitting and decreasing is going to make up that whole 10-inch long hat, give or take. Okay, everything's a guesstimation here. All right, so this is how we're going to begin our decreases. All right, so I've just finished off that last row, and now I'm going to begin my decreases. So to decrease, you're going to knit the first 2 stitches together, and knit 1. And you want to tug on that a little bit. We're going to repeat this all the way around. So again, see these first 2 stitches? You're going to insert your needle through both, yarn over, pull through both loops, and pull it off your needles, and knit 1. Continue the decrease all the way around. I'm here at the end of the first decrease row, and I am ending on a decrease. It's okay if they're back to back. You could just knit them if you feel more comfortable or not. It really doesn't matter. This is just the crown. Now we're just going to slip this, and we're going to knit this row all the way around. Okay, we just finished knitting that whole row. Now we're going to begin our second decrease row. We're just going to decrease all the stitches. Now, your decreases, your crown is really going to, like the shape of your crown, the size of your crown, is really going to depend on how many decrease rows you do. I like my crown to be a little bit stubbier, you know, a little bit more rounded. Some people like their crown to be a little bit more sloped and pointed. I don't like that, so I do less decreases. But if you wanted to do an extra round of decreases, you would start by knitting 2 together, knitting 2 stitches, and then knitting 2 together and knitting 2 stitches all the way around for your first decrease row. I didn't do that. So if you did the knit 2 together and knit 2 stitches as your first decrease row, you would then knit 1 row and then go back to the beginning, knit 2 stitches, knit 1, knit 2 stitches, knit 1, repeat that all the way through. That'll be your second decrease. And then you would knit again and then come back and knit all stitches, knit, knit, knit 2 together all the way around until you get the size crown that you want. We skip that first knit two together, knit two stitches, because I just don't like the look of that crown. As you can see, our hat is getting smaller and smaller, right? So it's starting to tighten up. It's starting to get a little bit difficult to do knit two togethers. In fact, I'm knitting too tightly here and my stitches are getting difficult to push in. It's okay, it just takes a little bit of elbow grease, but you can get it done. And then if you're doing it this way, you just got to remember to keep your stitches fairly tight, not super tight, but tight enough so you don't end up with giant gaps. If you do end up with gaps in your knitting up here in the crown, that's okay. You're going to leave yourself a nice big size tail, and whatever didn't get knit right, you can fix while you're weaving in your ends. And you can hide any imperfections with a pom-pom. So don't really worry about the crown too much. Nobody really should be looking at the top of your head, right? See how this ended on a single stitch? You can just scooch that over, take this off at this point, and scooch it back over and begin your decreases. You could do another round of knit stitches all around. In fact, it can't hurt. I'm going to do that. So I'm going to put my stitch marker back on because I just want to make sure that's about the beginning of the round. Again, it's not a big deal, but I just want to go around one more time and then we're going to knit and decrease even more. I already have enough that if I wanted to stop here, I could, but I'm going to decrease a little bit more. It can't hurt. See how it's already coming together, looking like a little round hat? I like it. And that's it on all the knits. But I'm going to definitely take off that stitch marker and knit everything two together. And if I do that, I'm going to end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches left, which is just fine by me. So knit two together. All right, I slipped that because I have to readjust my stitches. Put that back in, load all my stitches, and I have to get this one out so I could just maneuver it around that way. That's what's great about these circulars, is they're very maneuverable, guys. You can just readjust, you can poke out the cable through anything and knit in the round in pretty much any size. It can be tricky, and you don't have to learn this way. There are lots of videos that you could learn using the double stitch, the double ended needles, and that's fine too. That is it. We are done. I'm so excited. Okay, here we go. So now we're going to take get a nice size tail here. Be generous. Don't be afraid to use your yarn to weave it in. It's going into your work, so it's not going to waste. I don't want to struggle. I'm going to get a bigger tapestry needle and pull that through. And I'm going to take you see how I've got all my stitches loaded on needle 2 and needle 1. Here's the yarn in the center. It doesn't really matter where it is, but it shouldn't be on the outside, okay? You're just gonna take each stitch off using your tapestry needle. This is the easiest part of this work, and then you're just gonna pull it right through. And now you're gonna go to the other side, pull your needle all the way through. All the way through like that. And again, continue getting all those needles, all those stitches onto your tapestry needle. And you see that? You're just gonna seal that shut. And that's it. Now, what you're gonna do here is you're gonna take your tapestry needle, put it through any one of those stitches there, and you're gonna pull it taut on the inside. You're gonna weave in the end like so. Now here it doesn't really matter, you just want to make sure that you're nice and taut so that it doesn't come undone. And just keep it in between those little pearls. And you could go all around in a little circle, just grabbing little pearls randomly. Just always make sure that you're grabbing like the little pearls going through the tops there. And you can make a knot if you feel comfortable, or just leave it like that. Especially if you went over it around and around like that, you really don't need to worry too much. And now you have a beautiful little hat. And to this hat, you can attach a little pom-pom, and maybe I'll show you guys how to do that in the next episode. Okay, guys, that is it. That is your very first super easy beginner hat. If you need any help or if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. If you want to learn how to knit a hat flat, also let me know and I could do a video on that if you're interested in that. I think that this is a super, super easy way to get your feet wet with circular knitting, even if you've never knit anything in the round before. Honestly, even if you've never knit anything in your life before, it is really not that difficult. It is difficult, but it's not that difficult. If you get stuck or have any questions at all, feel free to give me send me a DM or contact me on Instagram. I'm active there as MyMichelleKnits on Instagram, and I can be found on all social media as MaximumYarnage. You can also find me on Ravelry as MyMichelleKnits, by the way, just to let you know, I'm on Ravelry. Okay. There's really not much else to cover right now. I might go over how to do a pom-pom for a hat in the next episode. And if you have any other suggestions on beginner knits that you would like to try, feel free to let me know. Do check out Ravelry. I'll put the link in the description below. to go check that website out. It has a lot of beginner patterns that you might want to try out. And if you have any suggestions on any free beginner patterns, let me know and I will try and see if I could do them here and translate them into a like knitting video for you. If that would help you guys out, I think that would be pretty cool to try and do like an actual knitting pattern, because I don't do patterns myself. I don't have the time or the patience to write patterns myself, but I would be happy to go over like the steps on getting a pattern started, and maybe even cover some of the stitches that are in a specific pattern. I think that sounds like a good idea, so I might do that very soon. I hope that this was helpful, you guys, and I hope that you got something out of this. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye! I don't know why I waved. I don't know. Who am I waving to? There's nobody here. There you go.